Hello, my amazing listeners. I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your incredible support and love over the past few weeks. The growth has been amazing and is all thanks to you. If you haven't joined the family yet, I invite you to hit that subscribe button and become part of this wonderful journey. Now, sit back and relax as we dive into another thrilling story. Adanna's heart raced as she read the message on Chike's phone. I can't wait for this to be over. Then it'll be just us. The name on the screen, Bimpe, was one she had never heard before. In that moment, everything she thought she knew about the man she loved began to unravel. In the heart of Lagos, where luxury and poverty exist side by side, lived Chike Nwosu, a man driven by a hunger for success. His childhood had been a constant struggle, growing up in a cramped one-room apartment with his parents who barely made enough to feed the family. From a young age, Chike had decided that love was an illusion for the weak. In his world, only money mattered. He had vowed to claw his way out of poverty, whatever it took. Chike had ambition, charm, and looks that women found irresistible. But deep inside, he nurtured a cold, calculating heart. It was only a matter of time before he found the perfect opportunity to cash in on his good looks and charisma. And that opportunity came when he met Adanna Okoye, the only daughter of Chief Okoye, one of Lagos's wealthiest and most powerful men. Adanna was everything Chike wasn't. She had grown up in the lap of luxury, shielded from the harsh realities of life. She was kind-hearted, gentle, and hopelessly romantic. Adanna believed in true love, the kind of love she'd read about in books. Despite her wealth, she only wanted someone who would love her for who she was, not for her money. And that's what made her so vulnerable. Chike first spotted Adanna at an exclusive gala held in Victoria Island. He had managed to get an invitation through a well-connected friend, knowing full well that the city's elite would be in attendance. His eyes followed Adanna as she gracefully moved through the crowd, her laughter soft, her presence radiant. Chike knew who she was, of course. Everyone in Lagos knew about the Okoye family fortune. But what he saw wasn't just her beauty. It was an opportunity. Over the next few weeks, Chike made it his mission to insert himself into Adanna's life. He accidentally ran into her at a high-end art exhibition, then again at a charity function. Each time he turned on the charm, his smile warm, his eyes attentive, and Adanna, sheltered and inexperienced in matters of deception, was drawn to him. It didn't take long before they started spending more time together. Adanna fell fast and hard. She believed she had found her soulmate. Chike was everything she had been waiting for: attentive, kind, and seemingly uninterested in her family's wealth. He spoke to her as though she was the only person in the world, his focus solely on her. He told her stories of his upbringing, of his humble beginnings, painting himself as a man who had worked hard to get where he was. To Adanna, Chike was the embodiment of authenticity, a rare gem in a world filled with opportunists. But behind Chike's charming exterior was a ruthless plan. He had done his research. He knew that once Adanna married, she would gain access to her inheritance, a fortune that would change his life forever. His plan was simple: marry her, wait long enough to secure his claim to her wealth, and then divorce her. The marriage would be a stepping stone to the life of luxury he had always dreamed of. And once he had the money, he could leave Adana and return to Bimpe, the woman he had been seeing secretly. They had already discussed their future, a future that involved them enjoying the wealth Chike would secure from Adana. What Chike didn't anticipate was that Adana, for all her kindness and naivety, was not blind. The more time Adana spent with Chike, the more little things began to gnaw at her. In the beginning, she ignored them, convincing herself that every relationship had its quirks. But as the wedding approached, those doubts became harder to silence. One evening, they sat together in her lavish apartment, watching the sun set over Lagos. Chike had just returned from a meeting with business partners, and while they sat on the balcony, Adana noticed something strange. Whenever she talked about their future together, Chike deflected, changing the topic to material things: houses, cars, vacations. It seemed like he was more excited about the idea of what her wealth could buy than about their life as a couple. She didn't want to believe it. She loved him. But as the days passed, more unsettling signs appeared. He had grown more distant, sometimes spending late nights out without explanation. One day, as she was preparing dinner, Chike's phone buzzed on the counter. Out of the corner of her eye, Adana saw a message pop up on the screen. It was from someone named Bimpe, and the words were clear. "I can't wait for this to be over. Then it'll be just us." Her stomach twisted. Could it be nothing? Just a misunderstanding? Adana wanted to trust him, but her instincts screamed otherwise. That night, she couldn't sleep. The image of the message replayed in her mind over and over again. The next day, as Chike left for another one of his Zoom meetings, Adana did something she had never done before. She picked up his phone, heart pounding, and scrolled through the messages between Chike and Bimpe. What she found shattered her world. Chike had been lying to her all along. The messages revealed everything. He and Bimpe were planning to leave her as soon as he secured her inheritance. They even joked about how easy it had been to fool her, how naive she was. Adana's hands shook as she read the betrayal, her mind racing between rage and heartbreak. She wanted to confront him right there and then, scream at him, throw him out of her life. But something stopped her. A voice in her head told her to be patient, to think clearly. This was no ordinary heartbreak. If Chike was willing to deceive her like this, she needed to play smart. If he wanted to play games, she would play too, but on her terms. The next morning, Adana sat at her father's home, the weight of her discovery pressing heavily on her chest. She hadn't slept a wink since finding Chike's messages that shattered every illusion she had about the man she loved. The pain was almost unbearable, but beyond that, Adana felt something else: clarity. If Chike thought he could deceive her, she would show him that she wasn't the naive woman he believed her to be. She knew there was only one person who could help her now: her father. Chief Okoye stood by the window, his back to her as she recounted the betrayal. The rage in his body language was unmistakable. His jaw clenched, his fists tightened, and when he finally turned to face her, his voice was low but filled with fury. "I knew it," he growled, passing the floor in frustration. "I knew this man wasn't right for you. I told you, Adana. I told you to let him go to cancel that wedding before it was too late. Adana's throat tightened at the memory of their conversation. It had happened weeks earlier when her father had pulled her aside, practically begging her to walk away from Chike, but she had refused. She had loved Chike, or at least she had convinced herself that she did. All the other men in her life had come into it with one purpose: to win her heart for the sake of her family's wealth. Chike had been no different in that regard, but at least he hadn't rushed her or pressured her for immediate rewards. He had been patient, and that patience had been enough to convince Adana that there was something real underneath his ambition. Now, as she sat across from her father, she realized how foolish she had been. "I couldn't walk away, Daddy," Adana whispered, her voice barely audible. I thought Chike was different. I thought he would stay with me, even if it started for the wrong reasons." Chief Okoye let out a heavy sigh, his eyes filled with both sorrow and frustration. "Adana, love doesn't start with deception. You were trying to see the best in him. But this man, he never intended to stay. He's after your inheritance, just like the rest of them. And now you see it for yourself." Adana nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "I know you're right, but I can't let him win. I can't just cancel the wedding and let him walk away with the satisfaction of thinking he fooled me. I've made up my mind." Chief Okoye raised an eyebrow, sensing something in her tone. "What are you saying?" Adana's eyes met her father's, no longer clouded with uncertainty. "I'm still going ahead with the wedding." Her father's expression darkened, a deep frown creasing his forehead. "Adana, no. You can't marry a man who's planning to leave you as soon as he gets what he wants. He'll destroy you." But Adana shook her head, her resolve firm. "I know what I'm doing, Daddy. If I call off the wedding now, he'll think he's won. He'll go on, find another way to manipulate someone else, and walk away scot-free. But if I go through with it, I can control the situation. I can protect myself and everything you built for me." Her father looked at her for a long moment, trying to gauge whether she truly understood the risks. "What exactly are you planning?" Adana stood, pacing the room. Her mind was racing with the strategy she had stayed up all night crafting. "I'm not going into this blindly anymore. I know who Chike is, and now I can plan for it. But I need your help, Daddy." Chief Okoye crossed his arms, his voice wary. "Help with what?" "A prenuptial agreement," Adana said, turning to face him directly. "One that protects everything. My inheritance, your business, our family name, everything. If he's planning to leave me after the wedding, he'll leave with nothing." Chief Okoye's eyes widened in surprise. It was a bold move, one he hadn't expected from his daughter. But as he looked at her, he saw a new strength, a new determination. Adana wasn't walking into this marriage as a naive girl anymore. She was prepared to play the game on her own terms. After a long pause, Chief Okoye nodded. "All right, Adana. If you're going to do this, then you'll need to be smart about it. I'll get my lawyers involved." Adana exhaled slowly, relieved that her father understood. "Thank you, Daddy." But Chief Okoye wasn't finished. "Just know this. If Chike hurts you in any way, I won't stand by. I'll handle him myself. He will regret the day he tried to deceive you." Adana nodded, her heart heavy with the knowledge of what was to come. She knew the wedding wouldn't be the fairy tale she had once imagined, but it would serve a different purpose now. Chike had planned to play her, but he had underestimated her strength. She would go through with the marriage, but this time she would be in control. Together, they crafted a plan. First, Chief Okoye contacted his legal team, and within days, a new prenuptial agreement was drawn up. The terms were ironclad. In the event of a divorce, Chike would leave with nothing, no access to the inheritance, no claims to her wealth. To protect the family fortune even further, all of Adanna's assets would be moved into a trust, one that would be completely out of Chike's reach, no matter how long they were married. But Adanna wasn't finished. She wanted Chike to suffer the consequences of his betrayal without even realizing it was happening. So she would play the part of the loving, clueless bride while Chike believed he had won. He would marry her, thinking he had secured his golden ticket, only to find himself trapped in a marriage where his scheming would gain him nothing. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Adana acted as though nothing had changed. She smiled, laughed, and even planned romantic getaways with Chike, all while knowing the truth. Chike, oblivious, continued his game, confident that he had successfully deceived her. He began discussing their future more openly, dropping hints about the wealth they would soon have at their disposal. One evening, as they were having dinner, Chike casually mentioned, "You know, we should start thinking about how to invest the inheritance once the wedding's done. It's important to secure our future." Adana smiled sweetly. "Of course, love. We'll make all the plans after the wedding." Her heart clenched, but she maintained her composure. She would not let him see the storm brewing inside her. The wedding day arrived, a grand affair attended by Lagos's elite. The media buzzed about the union of Adanna Okoye, the heiress, and Chike Nwosu, the man who had won her heart. The ceremony was lavish, the reception even more so. Chike stood at the altar, feeling victorious. As he exchanged vows with Adana, he couldn't help but think about the life of luxury that awaited him. Soon, he would have access to everything: the wealth, the influence, the power. But as they signed the marriage certificate, Chike's victory was about to slip through his fingers. A few weeks after the wedding, Chike's greed began to rear its head. He started pressuring Adana about the inheritance, asking when they could start accessing the funds. Each time she evaded, giving vague answers and stalling. Chike grew impatient. One evening, in frustration, he confronted her. "Adana, I think it's time we talk seriously about the future. You've been dodging this for weeks. When are we going to start using the inheritance? We need to make decisions." Adana looked up from the book she was reading and smiled softly. "I've been meaning to talk to you about that." She stood and walked over to the desk, pulling out a stack of papers. "Before we move forward, there's something you need to see." Chike's heart skipped a beat. He took the papers from her, confused, and started reading. It was a prenuptial agreement, a legal document that outlined the terms of their marriage in case of a divorce. The more he read, the more his heart sank. The inheritance wasn't his. The assets were locked in a trust that he had no claim to. The prenuptial agreement ensured that if he ever tried to leave her or claim any of her wealth, he would walk away with nothing. The marriage, which he had thought would be his ticket to a life of wealth and freedom, had become a cage. Chike stared at the paper, his hands trembling. Adana, what is this? Adanna's eyes were cold, her voice steady. It's protection. Protection from people like you. He tried to protest, but the words wouldn't come out. He had been so confident, so sure of his plan. Now everything was crumbling. The woman he had set out to deceive had outsmarted him at every turn. Chike was trapped. He couldn't leave her without losing everything. And worse, he knew that she knew. The weight of his own betrayal settled over him like a cloud, suffocating him. He had destroyed the only thing he hadn't planned for, his future with Adana. Months passed, and the marriage became a cold, distant affair. Adana focused on her work and social life, while Chike found himself increasingly isolated. The woman he had planned to betray had become an enigma, her kindness now tempered with a quiet, unspoken strength. But something strange began to happen. Despite himself, Chike started to see Adana differently. As they shared their days, her resilience and intelligence shone through. She had every right to throw him out, to destroy him after what he had done. But she didn't. She let him stay, allowed him to be part of her life. And slowly, almost against his will, Chike found himself drawn to her in a way he hadn't expected. The game had changed. What had started as a marriage of deceit became something else. Chike, once driven only by greed, found himself caring for Adana. He admired her strength, her quiet determination, and the way she carried herself with grace, even after knowing the truth. But love was complicated, especially for a man like Chike. He couldn't ignore the fact that he had betrayed her. Could Adana ever truly forgive him? Could they ever have a real marriage after everything that had happened? One evening, as they sat in silence over dinner, Chike finally spoke. Adana, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I've changed. I care about you, truly, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving it, if you let me. Adana looked at him, her face unreadable. For a moment, the silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken emotion. Finally, she sighed, her eyes softening. Chike, I don't know if I can ever forget what you did, but I do believe people can change. I've seen it happen. Chike's heart raced. For the first time in months, he felt a glimmer of hope. But, she continued, her voice firm, I need time. I need to know that I can trust you. Trust is something that has to be earned. Chike nodded, his throat tight. I'll wait as long as it takes. Adana gave him a small, sad smile. We'll see. In the months that followed, Chike worked hard to rebuild what he had broken. He supported Adana in her career, stood by her side at social events, and made efforts to show her that he was no longer the man who had once planned to use her for her money. But the question remained, could Adana ever truly love him again? Could she forgive him for the betrayal that had nearly destroyed them? And could Chike live with the knowledge that he might never be free of the mistakes of his past? The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The heart, once betrayed, is a dangerous thing to gamble with. Months passed, and the marriage between Chike and Adana continued in a fragile balance. Chike was a changed man, but his past mistakes weighed heavily on him. He worked diligently to prove his loyalty to Adana, but the unspoken tension between them lingered like a dark cloud. Adana, though outwardly calm, was torn inside. The man she had once loved with all her heart had betrayed her in ways she never thought possible. Yet, the change in Chike was undeniable. He was no longer the schemer who had entered her life for money. He seemed genuine now, thoughtful, and even protective. But could she trust this new version of him? One day, while reviewing documents in her office, Adana received a message that shook her to the core. Bimpe was back in Lagos. Adana hadn't thought about Bimpe in months. After discovering Chike's betrayal, she had cut all emotional ties to the woman who had been part of the scheme. But the news of Bimpe's return brought a fresh wave of uncertainty. What did she want? Was she back to reignite her relationship with Chike, or did she have another motive? The thought unsettled Adana. She knew she needed to confront this ghost from Chike's past, but she wasn't sure if she was strong enough to face the potential fallout. After all, had Chike truly changed, or was he merely biding his time, waiting for another opportunity? The end. Watch out for part 2, dropping this Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.